Here's what they never say out loud. When Hollywood decides to tell the story of a legend, a real, living, breathing legend who changed music forever, they need a key. Not a script, not a camera, a key, access. The photographs nobody's seen, the private letters, the people who actually know what happened, and 9 times out of 10, they get that key from someone who was supposed to protect the truth. A spouse, a child, the artists themselves still alive, still watching, approving every scene before it goes to screen. And what comes out the other side isn't just Hollywood's lie, it's a sanctioned lie. A curated, approved, carefully constructed false version of history with the family's signature on it. These are the R&B legends whose stories got rewritten, not just by Hollywood, but with the help of someone who knew better. Number 10, The Temptations, NBC biopic, 1998. Here's the thing about Otis Williams. He was the last man standing. The Temptations, 5 voices that built the foundation of Motown soul, had already lost 3 of their founding members by the time NBC decided to put their story on television. David Ruffin was gone. Eddie Kendricks was gone. Paul Williams was gone. And the only original Temptation still breathing when that 1998 miniseries went into production was Otis Williams, who also served as executive producer, who controlled the story. You probably know My Girl, you know Ain't Too Proud to Beg, you know Papa Was a Rolling Stone, and if you know those songs, you know the voice that carried some of the most iconic moments in soul history, David Ruffin. The man was extraordinary, but the man also had a complicated, turbulent life. Don't you feel it? Can't you feel it? I don't want to lose. Drug addiction, erratic behavior, an ego that burned as bright as the talent. The biopic shows you some of that. But Ruffin's family made clear after the fact that the portrayal wasn't the full picture, that what they saw on screen flattened a complex human being into his dysfunction. You got to feel it. And here's the part that stays with me. Otis Williams wasn't being cruel. He was protecting what they built. But there's a difference between protecting a legacy and protecting the truth. When 3 of the 5 people in a story aren't there to push back, when you're the last one in the room, your version of events doesn't just shape the narrative, it becomes the narrative. Millions of people watched that NBC miniseries. For most of them, that 2-night event was the only version of the Temptation story they'd ever see. One man's memory, one man's grief, one man's permission, and the rest of them couldn't say a word about it. Coming in at number 9. What happened to that number 9, TLC, Crazy Sexy Cool, the TLC story, 2013, VH1. TLC was the best-selling American girl group of all time. Let that sit for a second. Not just the best girl group, the best-selling. Waterfalls, Creep, No Scrubs. If you grew up in the 90s, those songs were part of your DNA. You didn't just know them, you felt them. And in 2013, VH1 decided to tell their story. T-Boz and Chili signed on as executive producers. They cast it, they approved the script, they had full creative control, and Lisa Left Eye Lopes, the other third of that DNA, had been dead for 11 years. Here's what's important to understand about Left Eye. She died in a car accident in Honduras in April 2002. She was 31 years old, and when the biopic aired, Her brother, Ronald Lopes, and family members who loved her came forward and said the Lisa they saw on screen wasn't quite right, that her story got simplified, that her complexity, the fire, the contradictions, the visionary creative who did things entirely on her own terms got softened into something more manageable, something that fit more cleanly into a 2-hour television event. You know that feeling when someone tells a story about someone you love and you can hear the little adjustments they're making, not to lie exactly, but to make it easier? That's what this felt like to the people who actually knew Lisa Lopes. T-Boz and Chili weren't being malicious. Left Eye was their sister. Their grief was real, but grief and accuracy are not the same thing. When 2/3 of a group control the story of all three, the one who can't contradict you becomes whoever you need her to be. Not a villain, just a version the two of you can live with. And millions of people met that version and thought they knew her. Number 8 is up next. Real talk, only 9% of you are subscribed. That hurts. We're spending hours digging through archives, fact-checking every detail, bringing these stories back to life. And if you're watching this far, you clearly care. So hit subscribe. It's free and takes 2 seconds. Now, to my subscribers, barely any of you have joined the membership. And honestly, that stings even more. You know the work we put in. You keep coming back. If these videos have ever made you feel something, if this music means something to you, join the membership. It's one coffee a month and it's the only way we keep this going. Let's build this together. All right, back to it. Number 8, New Edition, The New Edition Story, 2017 BET. 6 men, one of the most complicated, painful, and ultimately triumphant origin stories in R&B history. And in 2017, BET gave them 3 primetime nights to tell it. The New Edition Story was a television event watched by close to 30 million viewers across its run. And here's the part that sounds like the right answer. All 6 surviving members were executive producers. Bobby Brown, Ralph Tresvant, Ricky Bell, Michael Bivins, Ronnie DeVoe, and Johnny Gill all had a hand in the script. Everyone at the table, everyone with a voice, which should theoretically be the most honest version of the story, right? And in some ways, it was. The exploitation by early management, the financial abuse that left teenagers who'd scored a #1 album with almost nothing in their pockets, the Bobby Brown departure, the New Jack Swing comeback. It's all in there. But here's what happens when 6 men who've spent 30 years navigating shared history, old wounds, and ongoing business relationships all get to approve the script together. The sharp edges disappear, the specific frictions, the things still not fully resolved between some of these men, those got smoothed over because nobody wants to burn down something they're still building. And here's what stays with me about this. You've probably been in a room where a group of people told their shared story and left something significant out. Not a lie. Just a version they could all agree on. That's the New Edition story. A version 6 men agreed to. The people on the other side of those disputes, the former managers, the women whose lives intersected with all of this, they didn't get a seat at the table. 6 keys opened the door, but not all the rooms were available. 7 is coming. Number 7, Bobby Brown, The Bobby Brown Story, 2018 BET. Why am I so rare, but they don't understand me? Bobby Brown wasn't done talking. 1 year after the New Edition Story, he came back with 2 hours of primetime BET all to himself. The Bobby Brown Story. His life, his rules, his executive producer credit.
'Cause what I'm doing for you now.
And anyone who cared deeply about Whitney Houston, who watched their stories intersect for over a decade, watched this film with a different eye than everyone else did. Here's what you need to know first. Before Whitney, before the tabloids, before all of it, Bobby Brown was one of the most thrilling artists in R&B. Don't Be Cruel in 1988 was a masterpiece. Every Little Step, My Prerogative. The man had real talent and real charisma, the kind you can't manufacture. And the early sections of that biopic got that right. They showed you the genius, the kid from Roxbury who changed what R&B could sound like. That part is accurate and worth saying clearly. But here's where the approved version starts to diverge from the complicated one. The years with Whitney, the ones the audience was really there to understand, those got told from one angle, Bobby's angle. And the choices that angle made about culpability, about what led where, have been disputed. Not just in the press, but by people who were inside that story. Robyn Crawford, the person who arguably knew Whitney better than anyone alive, had already published her own memoir, A Song for You, My Life with Whitney Houston. And it tells a version of events that doesn't fully align with Bobby's authorized story. Both versions exist. One had a primetime slot and an executive producer credit. The other had to find its own publishing deal.
They say I'm crazy.
Number 6, James Brown, Get On Up, 2014. James Brown was the godfather of soul. 50 years of music that shaped everything that came after. Funk, hip-hop, R&B, all of it runs through him. And in 2014, Universal Pictures gave him Chadwick Boseman, a serious production budget, and a biopic produced with significant involvement from his estate. Chadwick Boseman was magnificent. If you've seen that performance, you already know. He captured something real about James Brown's fire and his genius. That's not the issue. The issue is what the film chose to do with everything else. The James Brown estate at the time of that film was one of the most contested in music history. His children disputed the will, his widow's claim was challenged, lawsuits layered on lawsuits, and the version of James Brown that made it to theaters was necessarily the version the controlling interests could agree on, which meant the harder truths got handled carefully. His documented history of domestic violence, police reports, public record appears in the film, briefly, in scenes that land and then move on. There's a difference between acknowledging something and actually sitting with it. Get On Up acknowledges, and here's what gets me. The women who experienced the other side of that man deserve more than a few scenes that quickly resolve themselves so the film can get back to the stage where James Brown was undeniable. The estate, with its financial interests tied directly to how the world sees him, gave that balance their blessing. Some of y'all already knew there was more to this story. You were right. Number 5, Billie Holiday, Lady Sings the Blues, 1972. Billie Holiday had been dead for 13 years when this film came out. She died in 1959 in a hospital bed under arrest with federal agents posted outside her door until her final breath. She didn't get a moment of peace, even at the end. And in 1972, Motown Productions and Berry Gordy gave her story to the world in Lady Sings the Blues. 5 Academy Award nominations, one of the landmark achievements of Black cinema in the 70s and one of the most quietly self-serving biopics ever made. Here's the person you need to understand: Louis McKay, Billie Holiday's final husband. In the film, he's played by Billy D. Williams, charming, devoted, the romantic center. The hero, the man who shows up, refuses to give up on her, pays her hospital bills in secret. And Louis McKay was a consultant on that film. He had direct input on how his character was written. The real Louis McKay was a former mob enforcer who, by multiple historical accounts, was abusive toward Billie Holiday. Their marriage was troubled and estranged at the time of her death. He also inherited her entire estate when she died because she had left no will. And then, 13 years later, the man who inherited from her and allegedly abused her served as consultant on the film that would become most people's primary understanding of her life. In that film, he is her savior. Billie Holiday herself once said of her own autobiography, the book the film was based on, "It's not particularly true, but I think you'll enjoy it." She said that about her own story, and nobody listened. Number 4, Tina Turner, What's Love Got to Do with It, 1993. Tina Turner was alive, thriving, one of the most powerful live performers on the planet when this film came out in 1993. The film was based on her own autobiography. She was intimately involved in every aspect of it. Angela Bassett played her. Lawrence Fishburne played Ike. And the film depicted Ike Turner as functionally a one-dimensional abuser, violent, controlling, without redemption or complexity. And I need to say this carefully: the abuse was real, documented. What Ike Turner did to Tina was not a matter of interpretation. It was a pattern of physical violence and control that lasted years. Her story was hers to tell, and she told it. That right belongs to her, full stop. But here's the part that lives in the complicated space when a biopic becomes the historical document. The one most people will ever see, and the one that shapes how a generation understands someone's entire life. It carries weight beyond the person telling it. Ike Turner's sons watched their father become a cultural shorthand for abuser. Not a man, a symbol. They've spent decades trying to have a conversation about the musician he was before the relationship collapsed. The genuine innovator, the band leader who built something extraordinary in the Delta before Tina was even in the picture. That version of Ike Turner largely doesn't exist in the public consciousness because the film Tina approved didn't need him to be that. She needed him to be the man she'd survived, which was also real. But Ike Turner died in 2007, still trying to recover a version of his name the world was no longer interested in giving him. And the key that opened the door to this story, Tina held it herself, coming in at 3. Number 3, Aretha Franklin, Respect, 2021. Aretha Franklin spent years actively developing her own biopic. She had opinions about the script. She was involved in casting. Jennifer Hudson was brought in with Aretha's personal blessing. She was building a specific, intentional version of her own story. And then in August of 2018, before a single frame was shot, Aretha Franklin died. And the film went forward anyway, with the story she had already shaped. The version of Aretha Franklin she was willing to show the world, which was extraordinary. Jennifer Hudson's performance was staggering. The film captures the music, the power, the cultural impact. That's all real. But here's where it gets complicated. Aretha's relationship with her father, Reverend C.L. Franklin, one of the most layered dynamics of her entire life, is handled with careful restraint. The documented circumstances of her early teenage years, the births of her first 2 children before she was 16, the way her childhood shaped everything she became, the film gestures at these things. It does not sit in them because Aretha had already decided what could be touched and what couldn't. And here's the thing, Aretha Franklin earned the right to control her own story. 50 years of giving the world everything she had, her voice, her pain, her genius. She was entitled to decide what stayed private. That's a human right. But when you title your film Respect, her anthem, the word that defined what she demanded for herself and demanded for women, and then protect certain truths from full examination, there's a quiet irony living in the frame. The film you approved is about a woman demanding to be seen fully, and it was made with permission to not show everything. That tension lives in every scene. Number 2, Whitney Houston, I Want to Dance with Somebody, 2022. The Whitney Houston Estate had one opportunity to tell this story on the big screen, one chance to give her a definitive Hollywood film. They took it carefully. Naomi Ackie played Whitney beautifully. Anthony McCartan, who wrote Bohemian Rhapsody, wrote the screenplay, and the film was produced with the full cooperation of Pat Houston, Whitney's sister-in-law, who has managed the estate since Whitney died in 2012. The family was in the room. The family had control. And people who loved Whitney Houston, who knew her music wasn't just music, but something that felt like the inside of their chest, watched that film and felt gaps they couldn't quite name. Here's what those gaps were. Her addiction is in the film broadly. Her relationship with Bobby Brown is in the film. But the specific enabling dynamics around her, who was in the room, who knew what, who had financial incentive to keep her working when she wasn't well, those things exist as background, not as foreground. Her relationship with Robyn Crawford, her childhood best friend, and by Robyn's own account in her 2019 memoir, I wanna feel the heat with somebody. Yeah. A Song for You, My Life with Whitney Houston, her first love, is shown in the film, but shown carefully in ways the estate could agree to. Robyn Crawford herself did not participate in the film. She had already told her version. The film lives in a different universe than that book. The Whitney Houston Estate has significant ongoing financial interest in how Whitney is remembered. Her catalog, her licensing deals, her brand, love and financial interests are not always in conflict, but they're not always in alignment either. And whether both things can be true at the same time, some of y'all already know which side you're on. And then there's number 1. Number 1, Ray Charles, Ray, 2004. Ray Charles was alive when this film went into production. He worked with director Taylor Hackford. He approved the casting of Jamie Foxx. He reviewed the script. He sat for interviews and gave access to his story. And then on June 10th, 2004, 4 months before the film's release, Ray Charles died. And the film came out that October, shaped in significant part by the man whose life it depicted. The man who knew going in exactly what his legacy was going to look like. Let me tell you what that means in practice. Ray Charles was one of the most gifted musicians in American history. Georgia on my mind. What did I say? Hit the road, Jack. The genius is real. The survival story in poverty, blindness, addiction, triumph is real. And the film honors all of it. Jamie Foxx won the Oscar. The film was celebrated everywhere. None of that is in dispute. What the film handles with particular care is Ray Charles and women. He fathered 12 children with 10 different women. His infidelities were not occasional. They were systematic, decades long, and well documented. His wife, Delabia Robinson, endured more than 20 years of it before she filed for divorce in 1977. The film shows you some of this, but it frames these patterns primarily as personal struggle, a man wrestling with his demons, rather than a sustained pattern of harm to specific people. Women who carried his children, women in the Rayettes who experienced the direct intersection of his power and his desire. The film that Ray approved is sympathetic to Ray, not to them. And here's what I keep coming back to. Ray Charles knew this film was coming while he was still alive. He had time to think about his legacy, to decide what he wanted the world to understand about him. And the version he approved was the one that centered his genius, his suffering, his survival, not the women who experienced the other side of all three. That's not just Hollywood lying. That's a man with a camera, a story, and months left, choosing carefully, with full intention, what the world would and would not know.